Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Back again to mini MBA in marketing. There were a few important concepts which we discussed about in the last, in fact, the first session of mini MBA in marketing, and I was really happy to see your response to the same. Let's try to make this session as interactive as we can. I would like to cater to as many questions you have in your mind today. Before that, we'll pick up some important concepts which are really important for us to understand related to the kind of marketing strategies generally taken over by the companies, and the pricing strategies also picked up by the company. And let's see what really makes them decide that this kind of a strategy would be beneficial for them, or this kind of a pricing strategy is ultimately a right strategy for them, right? So basically, we will focus this session on understanding how these strategic decisions are made over a period of time by the company. Yesterday, we started discussing about the economic factors, right? I really would like to take those factors because they are important and crucial in the sense that once you understand what are the government's decisions and you have an idea about what kind of policies are implemented by the government, that really makes the company decide, what kind of decisions to be taken, what kind of strategic choices to be made by them. It could be any kind of a strategic choice for that matter. Maybe the company is thinking about expanding its market or diversifying its whole portfolio. So these kind of decisions are based on numerous factors, as yesterday's class was based on understanding how these social factors or maybe economic factors or the political factors, right? And we started discussing about some of the economic variables and the monetary policies used by the government to curtail the money supply in the market. Let's start with the same topic again because we could not cover up what we were discussing in the last few minutes. This was related to the CRR. As I said, inflation, a kind of a situation where the prices are rising, your consumers in the market, they have a flow of money to some extent, but still it is important for us to understand that if you don't want the prices to rise further, right, you cannot have the indefinite amount of money flow in the market because that will increase the demand despite understanding that whether there is inflow of money coming in or not. So you have to curtail down that money factor from the market, and thereby the government, it comes up with the policies like cash reserve ratio. That is the share of the bank's total deposit, as I said, and which is actually mandatory for them to keep with the Reserve Bank of India. That is the Central Bank of India. And once you keep it, definitely, since there is some percentage of money to be kept with RBI, of course, this is going to curtail the money supply in the market. So, of course, it is going to have a very, very deep impact on the inflation. You can control this inflation. Now, what generally happens is, maybe at the time when there is high inflation in the economy, the RBI, it takes up the decision to raise the CRR. That is the cash reserve ratio, and it reduces the amount of money which is now left with the banks. Now the banks, since the CRR is increased, so the amount to be kept with Reserve Bank will also increase. So the amount left with the bank will be less, and it cannot actually be used in lending money to the customers around. So if you're curtailing down that amount, of course, the money supply in the market will reduce. So if the money supply is less, the demand will come will come down, and as a result, it will definitely have an impact over the inflation. Because the demand is more and you don't have enough commodities available in the market. So of course, inflation will go on and on. So you need to have some ways to curtail it, some ways to control it, and that's how the government is doing it. Another important concept over here is SLR, which is currently at 18%, known as the statutory liquidity ratio. So now statutory simply says that it's actually important, and for you it is mandatory to keep some deposit, right? The commercial banks, they're required to maintain maybe in the form of gold or maybe in the form of cash or maybe in the form of some other kind of securities, and these deposits, they have to be maintained by the banks. You don't have to keep them with RBI, the Reserve Bank of India. You can keep it within your bank. But of course, this again will have an impact, because if I'm raising this SLR rate as RBI, right, it is again going to curtail the amount which will be available with the commercial banks. So again, the same impact which we discussed in CRR. Another important point over here is, apart from SLR, we have repo rate. Now, repo rate, generally talking about the repo rate, see, each and every, like when you're talking about two different organizations here, that is the commercial bank as well as the RBI. So, in this case, the commercial banks, they are borrowing the money. You know, they sell their securities to the central bank and they borrow the money from them. And this kind of liquidity needs to be maintained. Now here, Reserve Bank of India, if it is increasing the repo rate, now this is the amount of money which is borrowed by commercial banks. Now, if you are borrowing, so that means if you increase the rate of interest, of course, the borrowing will be less in case of commercial banks' desire to borrow more. So this, again, the lesser rate or increase in the rate would determine that how much money will be in the market. So flow of money again will be determined on the base of the repo rate. So commercial banks will not park their funds if the repo rate is not high. It is not going to borrow funds from RBI if the repo rate is not high. And if the commercial banks commercial bank doesn't park the fund with RBI, so of course the money supply with them will be more, and money supply in the economy again will be more. So again, this is again need to be curtailed. So we need to understand all these points, they are important for us. And similarly is a reverse repo rate, which again is a part where the RBI is borrowing money from the commercial banks. So, of course, when you borrow money, you have to pay interest. And if, just assume yourself, if the interest comes down, maybe your borrowing increases. If the interest goes up, your borrowing reduces. So, similarly is the case when the banks, they are getting more interest. So, of course, they will be interested in parking their funds with RBI. And opposite would be the case. Now, why is it essential for us, or maybe for the business houses, to understand these kind of monetary policies? See, monetary policies, as we have seen, they have a very good impact as far as the money supply in the market is concerned, or in the economy is concerned. It is definitely impacting your interest rate as well as inflation. Now here, the businesses, when they are very, very clear about this, that this is the kind of a monetary policy, the government has come up with, right? Or maybe this is where the government is either reducing the supply of money in the market or increasing the supply of the money in the market. So that would actually make the business decide whether it has to go for expansion. Of course, if money is more, expansion is possible. It is possible even for the business houses, and it is even possible even for your consumers who have money supply in their hands to make the final purchase decision. Another form would be maybe in the form of net exports, or maybe the level of employment which these business houses are capable of generating, right? So completely all these things are basically dependent on the flow of money in the economy, right? And definitely it will have a deep impact on the aggregate demand, of course, yes. Now, overall, what we have discussed till now is, it's really, really very important for you to understand there are certain environmental forces, there are certain market forces which need to be specifically studied by the company before taking any strategic choice or any strategic decision. Now, how do you generally do that? Of course, the environmental scanning is required. Of course, you need to know that how and at which level things are changing in the market. You cannot sit idle, right? This cannot happen like that. So there are different kind of ways through which the companies are trying to collect the information from the market. Either the company is interested in collecting this information on day-to-day basis, maybe because I have to take some daily operation decision making, and this is completely dependent on how and at what point of time the things are changing. So I have to do it every day. I have to do it very frequently. So some of the things need to be conducted very, very frequently. You need to have a complete idea about your market from time to then. And of course, there could be other situation where maybe there is some, specific kind of a decision to be taken by the company. Now, in this situation, you cannot actually do that everyday basis. Maybe you need that information at a very specific point of time. For example, if the company is conducting a special kind of a survey, or maybe there is a special project to be taken up by the company. So you need to evaluate certain information which might be related to the company's project. So it's nothing related to the day-to-day activity, but it is related to something specific taken over by the company, or maybe something special the company aspires to do so. Another way, maybe if I'm going to the market, of course, I need to interact with my consumers, I need to interact with my vendors, I need to interact with the people who are directly or indirectly associated with my organization. So one thing is very clear. One way of doing your research in the market is that you directly interact with these parties who are directly or indirectly a part of your business. Another way is that maybe I'm a small organization, I do not have enough funds with me, I really need to depend on the information already gathered by some other organization. So I believe in a kind of information which is already processed, right? The information which has already been collected by some other party. So this kind of secondary analysis again is important, whereby you collect the processed information. Yes, absolutely right, Harsh Agarwal, we call it the secondary information. Secondary information, I don't actually mean to say that only small organizations do it, but sometimes you have the government agencies who have already done their primary research and their data is very, very relevant to us. So in that situation, even the bigger organizations, the huge organizations might also depend on the secondary source of information, right? I hope that makes sense to you, because you need to understand why is it really important for us to understand the market forces, and to see that these market forces are impacting the business, and accordingly you make your strategic choices in that case. See, consumer is considered to be the king of the market. Everybody is well aware about this statement. So it is really very, very important for you to know that yes, the businesses are making their choices. Yes, the businesses are trying to understand the needs, the choices, the desire of the consumer. But they also need to understand very, very well that what stage, actually compels the consumer to buy it. A lot of advertisements are coming in, and, as we were discussing even yesterday, some of the information, they might even go unnoticed. We are not even, paying attention, and we're actually not paying attention to 100% of the data coming to us, 100% of the information coming to us, because we have our own retention capacity. So similarly, the people, the companies, the marketers, they are very well aware about this particular notion. And as a result, they try to understand and they try to evaluate the information from their own perspective, understanding that everything will not be actually taken over. Here I have one important question. Ma'am, can you please tell something about the demand forecasting? See, demand forecasting, it has numerous methods. This is Agampreet Singh. Agampreet, we have different methods of doing it. You do the trend analysis, you do different kind of, maybe you do the historical analysis, what and how the companies have been working in the past, and how do you expect the company to do in future, understanding the different market variables, the market forces, which we just discussed about. So demand forecasting is, as I said, it has a number of methods, but you need to be clear about this, that this kind of a demand, whether, the forecasting which you're making or the assumptions which you're making about the demand, is it related to the pre-existing product in the market, or there is some another new product or a new launch or a new innovation which is coming up in the market. So, the demand forecasting techniques, they keep on changing, right, as per your company's establishment in the market, and of course, as per the product you are offering to them. Is it a new one, or is it the old one you're carrying on with? So that's what is demand forecasting, right? It's again a very big topic, but I think I must have answered what exactly you wanted to know about this. So we were actually talking about the consumer's decision, when they make a final buy. So you need to understand one thing very well, and we have even done that in our previous session, that you need to understand the needs of your consumer. Your consumers, they're doing a lot of research in the market. They do not make the decisions abruptly, right? And this information is coming to them, traveling to them from different sources, from different media. Plus, they're trying to interact with their relatives, their friends, the peer group, the organization they're a part of, and so on. So as a result, one is very well aware that your consumer is a smart consumer in the market, right? If he is a smart consumer, he will not leave any stone unturned, right, to gather the relevant information as far as his final purchase is concerned. Right, and then finally he would like to make his decision based on different variables. He'll make a comparison, he'll try to understand, you know, which factor is more important, which information is more important, which source of information is more reliable, right? Suppose if I want to buy something which is a, you know, a technologically driven product, right? So of course I will be considering and I will be referring to someone who has a good knowledge about the technology. So I am actually establishing my reference group here. I'll not go to someone who doesn't know anything about technology. So when I'm evaluating everything, I'm trying to evaluate from each and every perspective, from each and you know, all the sources which have been a part of it and who have given me enough information about it, and then finally I make my decision. So that's generally the way the consumer moves, you know, one by one, from one stage to another, from one level to another. So of course this makes us understand that it is the identification of customer's need which is important, and then finally when you find the gap, you give him the solution to this. Yes, again, one thing is very relevant in this context, and which is maybe when I'm looking for the information, right, I might be looking it from a different angle, but when I come across the sources, maybe my sources are altogether different. So in that situation, sometimes the consumers attention which was focused on one source might get shifted to the another source as well. So your problem solving process is a very tedious process. We don't even realize while we are making a final purchase that we have gone through such a rigorous brainstorming while making that decision. Yes, of course, that only happens with, generally it happens only with the expensive products in the market, let me tell you. You know, there the brainstorming is more, because I know that my product involvement and, the way, my amount which is associated with the product purchase is more. So, of course, that is the high involvement product for me. High involvement and low involvement is basically, if I'm going and buying the salt, that is a low involvement for me, because that doesn't even involve a lot of costing to it. If I'm going and buying a four-wheeler from the market, of course, a lot of costing is associated. So the brainstorming is required. The sources on which I'm going to rely on would be more. I would like to gather a lot of information as much as possible to me. So that's how generally this process goes. If you remember, even in the last class, we were discussing about that marketing cannot be just considered as a one-way marketing. You know, you need to have two ways marketing. That means if the company is marketing its product, of course, your consumers are also doing it for you. So it's not the way we are influencing a consumer, but how the your consumers are influencing you, and of course, simultaneously, how the consumers are influencing each other. You know, all these things are very, very relevant. So everything is taken into consideration, and then finally we understand this is a two-way process, and where we need to keep our consumers happy. And how do you make your consumers happy? Identifying their needs, making a product choice, delivering it to them, of course, very, very relevant. But once the product has been delivered, now you will see your example. You ask your mother buys, she made a purchase of buying a washing machine or maybe some electronic equipment. There you will find that she wants somebody to come home and install it. Right? You need somebody to look after, if there is any problem which arises thereafter once you use the product. So everything needs to be looked after step by step. So somebody has to be there to take care of you. Right? That's what generally the organizations do. They take the feedback, they give you the solutions even after you purchase it and during the time when you use it. So, ma'am, as consumer change their demand as per the time, as their want or as their need. So, it is not easy to know or capture their mind or demand. To what way may be used to know about the market daily? See, the companies cannot make the daily predictions. Yeah, Ritika Agarwal. My answer to her question is, Ritika, see, companies cannot make these decisions daily. Of course, there has to be a time duration when I really feel your product always has a cycle. right? You feel that your product is moving up, and at that one point of time it reaches to the top. That is the zenith of your performance of your product, and then slowly and gradually its performance, it starts coming down. So you have a particular movement here. So as per Ritika here, so you need to keep a track of these movement. You need to see where your product is right now. Whether it is in the introduction stage where you really need to keep a track on each and every activity, and then finally you see how it is growing, coming to the top where everything is fine with you, and then comes to a decline. So everywhere your decisions, everywhere your marketing strategies, they need to be changed. You cannot have the similar kind of strategies everywhere at every point of time. But that doesn't mean that you cannot or you should not keep a track on the daily changes. And that's why you even take the feedback. Yes, I think I was answering Ritika's question here. You actually need to take the feedback every day. So that's nothing. I'm taking a feedback, so I know what is happening daily, whether my customers are satisfied or not. If you go to the social media platforms, you have those opinions here. Right? They give you the feedback about the product. They give you the reviews about your product. So this is nothing but tracking the daily information. We should also give them after sales services. I actually write Agampreet Singh. Can we scroll down, sir? I would like to see. We should also give them after sales services. Through marketing, we can change the consumer mindset. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So these are some of the comments related to what we are discussing are coming in. You need to be very, very clear about, there is something which is very, very important. We have seen that a lot of advertisements on different platforms, right? You see the advertisements on TV, then you have, as I said, your mailbox is also stuffed with a lot of advertisement. Then, you go through the newspapers and all social media platforms, everywhere there is marketing, marketing, and marketing. But when the consumers finally visits the physical platform, the brick and mortar stores, the mom and pop stores, or maybe he's doing online shopping, what exactly makes him buy? Just think about it. You have the information bombardment, right? So much traveling to you, so much coming to you. On what basis do you take the decision finally there on the spot that this is the right product to be purchased by me? Just think about it. Just think about it and drop your answers there in the chat box. I would like to read them. All right. So easy return if online purchase is there. All right. So Vineet, so that means if there is an easy return, that would be your basis of purchase. All right. The price and quality, of course, that matters to you, the brand products. But how do you know about the price and quality? Okay, this is because the information traveling to you, the quality, the customer feedback, the 100% satisfaction, of course. All right, all right. See, generally, if you visit a store, right, even if you go for online purchase, so much of information with you. I simply want to buy maybe a small device costing 1,500 or 2,000. I want to buy a watch for my kids worth maybe 2,500, 3,000, right? Or maybe I want to go to a low involvement product of buying maybe some biscuits or maybe salt, FMCG items, right? So much of information has already traveled to me. So many advertisements are already seen by me. What comes in my mind, right, or what is there at the top of my mind when I'm making a final purchase is the one which makes me decide that this is the right choice or maybe the other one is the right choice for me. For example, if I'm going to buy milk, maybe I have Amul in my mind, maybe I have Mother Dairy in my mind. I'm giving you a very simple example, the day-to-day ones which you really come across, right? So maybe these two brands are there in your mind, but when you visit the store, maybe you find a standee there. There is maybe some kind of an advertisement, right? There is a layout. Maybe you go for an ice cream, again, there is a layout. So that brand automatically attacks you there and then. So I see the advertisement there on the store for Mother Dairy. So my switch over would be from Amul to Mother Dairy because that brand is actually at the top of my mind when I'm making my final purchase. Though I consider Amul and Mother Dairy both equivalent, maybe. Maybe that's my perception. So whatever comes at the top of your mind, that becomes your choice and that becomes your final purchase. This is how you generally take the decision. Just think about it. It must have happened in a number of cases. Of course, I do agree with you that the cognitive biases are there. Of course, the branding perceptions are there. You already have framed some kind of a brand perception. But maybe during framing that brand perception, you have equivalent brand perception. Shivani Porwal here. Maybe you have equivalent brand perception for two different brands at the same time. Right? So how do you decide? There and then what clicks your mind is relevant. Right? And there you have to see that on the spot, when you're making a purchase, there has to be something which is increasing the desire for a consumer to buy it. And apart from that, once this particular decision is done, once you have, taken that product, you've purchased it finally, you come back home, you use it. Of course, that happens with everyone. Just think about you when I'm saying it. Just go with the flow and understand how generally it happens and how psychologically it is working with you, right? You come back home, you have used it. Now, after using it, what could be the possible probabilities? Just think about it. You're back home, you're using it, you like it, maybe. You don't like it, maybe. Maybe you say it's just like, okay, right? So there could be numerous situations here. Either you're very satisfied, you're highly dissatisfied, or maybe there is a situation where maybe you're in a situation where you are not comfortable. You feel uneasy, or maybe you're regretting that you have made a purchase, right? We call it post-purchase dissonance, which is very, very important. Psychologically, yes, that needs to be understood by all the companies because you have to reduce this post-purchase dissonance. My consumer shouldn't feel unhappy or dissatisfied or uneasy, and he should not regret after buying it. So all the companies, they try the level best to bring down this post-purchase dissonance, right? And how do the companies do it? Right? After you come back home, you're using it, there's some kind of a dissatisfaction, maybe you have some kind of ambiguity still in your mind related to the brand, right? And related to its image in the market. The advertisers are still ready with their tactics. The advertisers, they are still, coming up with as many ads possible. They're coming up, these marketers, they come up with to popularize their brand as much as they can. And there's somewhere this ambiguity comes down. No, I purchase the right brand. Of course, this brand has these features. So generally, these advertising are basically emphasizing on your product excellent features, right? And it will make you believe that you have purchased a right product. So all the companies are trying really very hard to bring down this post-purchase dissonance, which we call. I hope that's clear. The last step of decision making, of course, is purchasing the product that shows or have more prospect of highest level of utility. Of course, yes. See, let me just give you a very simple example here. Amway advertises itself in a very, very beautiful way. Just think about the line it generally comes up with. We make better products in a whole new world, in a whole new way, by using our own ears. So their statement is, we make better products in a new way, we use our ears. What does that really mean? This means simply that this company is actually dependent on how the information from the consumers is traveling to them. Right? A company that is spending money where it actually matters for them, that is in the research and development. It is trying to understand the whole market. I'm not developing the product just like that, but I'm using my ears because I really want to know what my consumers have to say. Right? So this kind of a check needs to be done. And once this check is done, of course, you take a right decision. And that's what generally the companies are doing. Of course, sometimes even the product is a newly invented product, right? Which you really feel that maybe it is in a need or in a demand or not. But still, yes, the people are coming in. They're buying it and the companies are marketing it. And maybe there are sometimes a new product in the market which might be a kind of, you can say, a success in one geographical area. But you're not really very sure whether it is going to be a successful product in a different geographical market or not. For example, dishwashers in India. At one point of time, there was no acceptability. right? But slowly and gradually, when people started understanding its importance and maybe started relating dishwashers to the status also, right? Maybe their perception about the product slowly and gradually changed. So you have different ways of doing it. You completely, rely on how the information is traveling to you and how you're taking your decisions. So that's how generally the things move. Now, apart from that, marketing, okay, so we want to go for a poll here, right? Okay, fine. There is a small poll for you, every one of you. I want every one of you to be attentive with me here. So, this is what we have. Which newspapers, kindly give your votes here, give your answers here. Which newspaper's tagline is read to lead? Is it Economic Times, Business Standard, Financial Express, or Times of India? Give me your poll here. Again, next, only one has given, right? Come on, take your time. Can we come to the second question? They have it right there with them. Okay. Which company's tagline is the world on time? Flipkart, FedEx, Honda, TVS. Great. Okay. Right answer. Majority of the poll for the right answer. Can they see this percentage, sir? No. Who is Titan's eyeglass wear brand ambassador? Shahid Kapoor, Ayushmann Khurrana, Hrithik Roshan, Amitabh Bachchan. Good going. I'm still waiting for the replies from everyone. Give it a try. What difference does that make even if you're wrong? If you're right, absolutely fine. Even if you're wrong, give it a try. So the numbers are increasing now. These are some basic questions based on the advertisements you have seen. Good going. I'm still waiting for the replies. Shall we close the poll now? Right, sir? Okay.
Now results are on the screen.
Can you see the result here? And can we now give them the right answer?
Right answer after the conclusion.
Okay. So for the first one, which newspaper's tagline is read to lead? Is Financial Express. Which company's tagline is the world on time? Is FedEx. Wow, we have a good percentage talking about the same. Good answer. Who is the Titan's eyeglass wear brand ambassador? The answer is Ayushmann Khurrana, and of course we have the maximum percentage for the same. Good goings. Right, so we can stop it now. Right. Okay, good. Had to choose randomly. I'm not Indian. Okay, fine. That's completely fine. All right, so coming back to where we left. So we were discussing about, we took up an example of a company and try to see that how their slogans actually relate to how they are trying to manufacture, right? Here I would like to take one example, which is very, very important in fact. There are some kind of benefits. We divide them actually, or maybe we say that the company should actually define the marketing product at the 3 different levels basically. This is how I can actually put it so that you understand in a easy way. For example, there is a technical product. So the company is talking about some of the technical features of the product. Maybe you have a functional product. So maybe it is giving you some kind of tangible benefits. So these are the functional product. Or you have an emotional product. So it is, giving you some kind of emotional benefit. Now, how is it? Basically, when you look at these three different levels, now, something which comes in your mind is, where is the marketing here? Right? I have understood my product. Is it a technical one, or is it a functional one, or is it an emotional one? But where is marketing here? Just think about it. I'll give you one simple example again from your daily life to make you understand that how we generally perceive and understand the competition, all around us. Now, when you think about the competition at the technical product level, right? Let's talk about bread. In case of bread, what could be the competition as far as the technical product level is concerned? Technically is what? We some technical benefits. So maybe ho sakta hai that you were talking about a brand which is producing a milk bread, or maybe there's a brand which is producing a brown bread, or you have a multigrain. So as far as the competition at your technical product level is concerned, right? The technicalities of the product is concerned, then how is it manufactured, right? So maybe as far as bread is concerned, so milk bread, brown bread, multigrain, they're all going to be competitors of each other. Coming to the next one, right? Now you have the functional level. Functional level, maybe all the products, they might be giving you the same functional benefit. If I'm using a milk bread, I can make sandwich out of it. I can use the same brown bread to do so, and same with my multigrain as well. Now, since the bread is actually, or I would say primarily it is seen as a breakfast food, right? Everybody generally says, it's a kind of a breakfast food. So maybe if I talk about the competition at this particular level, which is at the functional level, right? Maybe the bread would compete with idlis, or maybe with parathas, or maybe with cornflakes, or maybe with oats. So you understand, maybe at the functional level, altogether, yes, maybe it is going to be in India. Maybe if you talk about the Western settings, it is definitely going to be different. Right. So maybe the competition at this level is going to be entirely different. Let me just pick up an example of an emotional level also. We do buy products even for status symbol, right? So there are, two of the things which come in my mind when I think about the emotional level. And if I pick up the competition at the emotional level, it is going to be altogether different here. So as far as the status is concerned, maybe then the competition at this level would include all the food products which will satisfy your status need. For example, if not bread, I would prefer maybe pizza or maybe burger, and so on. Maybe in case you belong to a different geographical area and a region, maybe your choice would be different here. Another way of understanding it, maybe I perceive it as a convenience product. Convenience product, right, something which is very easy to make. So when I go back home, I'm tired, I don't have much time to make something, so I use bread and make sandwiches out of it. That is my perception here. So what I'm doing over here is, because I'm understanding and perceiving bread as a convenience product, so I feel that Maggi becomes bread's competitor here. That is a convenient food, easy to make it, ready to eat snacks jo aapke hote hain, that all will fall into the same category. Yes, so this is where the competition comes in, and this is where the marketers need to decide their overall strategies. I hope that makes a point clear to you. It is very, very important for us how the consumers are perceiving that one single product. And I'm talking about just one single product of bread here. And bread can be perceived and understood by different customers in a different way. Right? Yes, technical advantage could be the firm to produce at the lowest cost. Yes, that can be one of the advantage. So primarily, when I'm talking about a low cost here, I'm talking to Musliuddin Tohib here, right? Maybe those products which are in low cost category would be my competitor, right? So that's how you generally decide who becomes your competitor and who is not your competitor, right? So benefit of using this kind of marketing product technique, basically the method which we are using here, you will be able to actually convert your whole market and make them use one single product for different kind of uses. Right. So bread over here is meeting your lower end need of hunger maybe, or it is also satisfying your higher order need because generally it is associated with the Western culture. So this is generally how the companies are trying to understand the consumer's mindset and then finally taking up the decisions of which kind of a strategy they must come up in the market with. Okay. Sometimes, you have different kind of products in the market as, for example, maybe the customer may not have a desire to buy any kind of a, product or maybe a food item at once. But maybe when the company is able to relate, maybe the consumer does not have a desire, but if it is able to relate the consumer's need with something, right, it might increase the consumer's desire to buy it, though there was no desire earlier. For example, let me just take up an example of Indian consumer here. It is believed that scrubbing is the best way of washing your clothes. Right? Again, that's how generally our elder people think about. If you have to wash it, I still have a maid at home who cleans it, and I'm not using my washing machine. If she is not there, then only it becomes an option for me to do go. But generally, because I also believe that the cleanliness is possible, because there's a lot of rubbing going on, of course. And that is the concept and that is the mindset which was understood by the companies producing washing machines. And Whirlpool made a very good connection using this particular kind of a concept. Right? So what kind of a connection was established by this company was, it started, talking about its product, and the way it positioned its product in the mind of consumer was, it came up with one single statement saying, it performs with a scrubbing action, and that's what I want. Right? This is what I was looking for. My maid, if she's not there, or maybe I don't need her anymore once I have a washing machine with me. A well-researched thought, isn't it? They're trying to understand the consumer's mindset. This is the reason because of which maybe the Indian consumers do not buy this particular item. So they are trying to change their mindset from time and then. I hope this example is clear to you and you understand that how generally these decisions are taken by the company and what kind of marketing action would actually compel their consumers to buy it if they were not interested in buying it earlier. Okay, so apart from that, let's talk about some of the more examples here. Because we were talking about washing machines, so dishwasher again is one of the example here. At one point of time, dishwasher was just considered to be a product because it's coming from with a Western concept here. So it was considered to be a kind of a status need basically, but slowly and gradually, the way it matched with the Indian houses, because you have a lot of things to be thrown out of your dishes before it needs to be placed in your dishwasher. That was a major concept here, and Indians leave a lot of stuff when they leave their food. So that was a concern here. And then finally, the utensils made of some kind of material, they were again modified, which can now be used in your dishwashers. So some kind of changes and modifications according to the geographical regions were made, and IFB dishwasher came into existence, and yes, doing extremely well in the market. But this is where you understand, what is wrong and what is right with a particular market, with a particular geography, and then you go for designing your marketing strategies, right? That's generally it moves like. Of course, there are numerous examples. I mean, this is endless in this context. But again, I again want to take up one more example related to Hindustan Unilever Limited, right? HUL, when it started the Indian market, it came to a conclusion that the Indian consumer's perception is really different when they're washing two different categories of clothes. Right, for that matter, if I'm washing some expensive clothes, I need to go for a different kind of a detergent. And if I'm washing some affordable and a daily wear cloth, I might be using some different kind of a detergent, right? So HUL has studied this market completely. It knows it very well that for everything, they cannot use anything. You need to have different product lines fulfilling the needs of consumers at a different point of time. So as a result, they created a large product line the huge product portfolio to fulfill the needs and requirements of the different clientele group, or maybe the different needs of the same client, in fact, and therein when you have the product depth here, right? You know, in the sense, maybe width is I have detergents, I have shampoos, I have soaps, and then so on. But within detergents, I might have different variants. And these variants might be fulfilling different needs of my consumer. Within that shampoo category, I might have different variants, you know, fulfilling the needs of different categories. Maybe I have, you know, I really want to make my hair dandruff free, so I need to have different kind of shampoo for this. Maybe my hair are, you know, is really oily and I need a different kind of shampoo here. So you know it very well that at different point of time, maybe within the same family, you need different kind of categories to be given. And that's what Hindustan Unilever, by doing and conducting a good market research, concluded on this point that one single product cannot satisfy the needs of all the consumers. Right? You need to have the variants, and that's why, and apart from that, not only those variants, if you look at it, you see that you have a big bottle of shampoo, right? Maybe it's 1 liter, which costs you a good amount, maybe around 350, 400 if you talk about a simple L'Oreal or maybe Dove shampoo, right? Now you have sachets and you have those small pouches which can actually help you in, you know, attending or catering to the needs of those consumer base in the market who might not afford or who cannot really afford that big bottles and so much investment to be made at one point of time. So these small sachets and these small, you know, maybe the bottles, even the bottles started coming in the market. So this is again one way where the company has decided to expand its market share, right? So I am increasing my customer base. It's not only the high income group, but the middle income group, because I have a mid-sized bottle, and then maybe a lower income group with those small sachets. See, wonderful strategy. You're giving the same product, right? Even the one with a good income or maybe with a low income can buy the same kind of a product in the market. That's your marketing strategy. And you pick up an example of so many you know, companies in the market. Sachet also fight the stigma. Who is there with me? Govindam Rastogi. Sachet also fight the stigma that bottles release a large amount of product than needed. Okay, yes, of course, that can be there. But generally, when you have a big, you know, family size, right? Yes, samples again is the one way of doing it. So when you have a big family size, you generally prefer a bottle instead of buying sachets, which cost you more. Right? So that again becomes one of the decision or maybe the reason behind not buying the sachets and going for the big bottles here. So sachets basically, it's not only about that I don't want to go for that expensive brand or, you know, I don't want to invest so much of amount at once, but it is also all about that I want to increase the trialability of my consumers. You know, once you give them samples as given by Ritika Agarwal here, right, or maybe sachets in the market, you are increasing the trialability. At least use it once. If you find it good, use it again. If you don't find it good, leave it. You know, that's what, for their own experience, that's what. You're increasing that trialability. And see, this is really very, very important. Even if you are able to bring in the consumers towards your brand and increase, and you're making them try your brand, a good job done. Because once there is a trialability, at least, you know, they are in a situation to make a comparison. Make them buy at least once, and then slowly and gradually everything will be fine, you know, over a period of time. पहले इस्तेमाल करें, फिर विश्वास करें. Absolutely. This is, we have Saugata Adak with me. Nice. I'm happy to see that you are actually connected with me in this webinar. I cannot, because you're all cameras and everything is off, I cannot even see you, but still I'm connected with you because there are a number of students who keep on messaging me and I'm able to, you know, be in touch with you with this. Washing powder tagline, of course, Ritika Agarwal, that's a washing powder tagline, but we can use it anywhere. Can you recall what happened with Honda Motor? Nirma, yes, I know, you know, lot of names of detergents in the market, right? I want to take up an example, see a lot of examples done. I think this is already 12:21 here. Let's move a little quickly. Somebody mentioned yesterday when we were discussing about something that there is a company, McDonald's, who came up with some kind of maybe burger and hamburger, which was taken back by the company because it did not really match with the Hindu religious sentiments and all. Right. Of course, here I just want to mention that it's really very important for the companies to understand the consumer's mindset related to their ethnicity, related to their religious sentiments and so on, because you cannot just beef burger, right? You're absolutely right, Shivani, here. And this was taken back by the company because it really hurt the Hindu feelings, right? Religious feelings, in fact. So one has to be very, very careful about it, and we have understood it very well. You cannot, the companies cannot survive in the market if they do not understand the customer's sentiments. If you really want to stay long, and that's why I said even in the last 2-3 years in the COVID-19 phase, right, virus had posed a lot of pressure on companies' mind and even on customers' mind. But still, the companies who were able to be there with the consumers throughout and were able to stay connected with them and were able to make their customers believe that I'm there, and I'm not there only with my product, but I'm there with everything you need, right? They actually survived in the market without any problem, right? Okay, so talking about again, there are, again, because we are talking about consumers, and it's really important for us to see that consumers, they want different things in the market. Right, so many competitors are there, and why is it that if not this, I'm ready with the another brand, if not this brand, I might go for the third brand and buy it. So it completely depends on understanding that what is needed and what kind of innovations are required. So as far as innovations are concerned, even somebody even mentioned that in chat, that innovation is important. Right, innovation in the sense that you need to come up with something new. Maybe you use a different technique, maybe you use a different technology, and maybe somewhere you have to increase your market share by bringing in something new in the market. That's what marketing says. You cannot survive and you cannot sustain your market share with just as where you are and with what you are. You need to keep on updating yourself. You need to keep on changing yourself, right? When I talk about the innovation, of course, the consumers who are trying new product in the market, first of all, there has to be a very step-by-step procedure to be followed by a company in understanding right from the understanding of a consumer's mindset till you actually deliver your innovative product to them. Right, Apple is a very good example here. Every 6-7 months or maybe in a year, it is ready with a new version of their mobile handset with some kind of features and something. You can go back and see what kind of launch was made just 2.5 months back recently. So yes, of course, adoption again becomes a problem here because it's not just about innovation. You're doing innovation because of course, Ashish, you're absolutely right. You need to do the research and development, right? And this research and development cell, which every company has, gives you the relevant information about the consumer base. Right, and this relevant information is used by the company to come up with something new in the market. Now, coming here, it's about I have one new product with me, right? There's some innovation by a company, something unique, something different, which I haven't done before. So this new product now is in the mind, is supposed to be actually placed in the mind of my consumers. So number one thing is the company has to focus on that each and every consumer in the market, who is my prospect consumer basically, one who is actually capable of buying or maybe who might buy my product, he needs to be well aware about what I am offering to him. So I start with awareness. I'm creating the awareness here. And now this awareness is not only telling about my product, but I have to actually increase some kind of interest right? So that, they go to different sources, try to get a lot of information about the product. So if there is a new innovation, if there is a new product, I might go to different sources. As we discussed earlier, I'll not make an abrupt decision. I'll try to find out what is so unique about the product. Why am I supposed to pay an extra pound to it, extra money to it, right? If I'm happy with my old product, let me just continue with it. So you need to keep on increasing that desire and interest in your consumer if you really want your new product to be finally adopted by your consumer. That's the case here. Now, apart from that, of course, when the consumer is making a final buy, he will definitely try to find out all kind of pros and cons. He's going to make a lot of evaluation. I'm using this X category. Why should I go for Z category? Right? I'm happy using X category. Then why should I go for Z category? Right? I need to evaluate. I need to see what kind of benefits this new product is offering to me. Right? And finally, after weighing all the pros and cons, all the advantages and disadvantages, finally, I go and try the product. Now, this trialability. Again, going back to someone who mentioned in the chat box here, right? This trialability is maybe I'm buying a small sachet. So what am I doing basically here? That I'm adopting this new product. I know that there is a new shampoo or a new conditioner in the market right now. I'm talking about those basic products basically, right? I actually try it on a limited basis because I'm buying a sachet. I don't want to take a chance of buying that big bottle and investing so much of amount into it. I am really not very sure whether it is going to be good or bad, whether I will be satisfied or not. So I have to really wait and see there. So what I do over here is I buy it only on limited basis. I buy sachets. I see how is it working on me, whether it goes with me or not. And then finally, when I'm happy using that small sachet or a sample which somebody here mentioned about, right, then I go for my full-scale buying. That's how generally you adopt to the innovation. Generally, this is how you look at the new product and then finally make a purchase. That's something what the company wants from you, right? And then finally, you say, yes, it was really right for me to make that final purchase. There will be a repeated purchase as said by Mithun Das. Absolutely right, Mithun. Right. So this is how generally we know the consumers. We try to decide on things. We see that this will be one of the influence the marketing would have on me. This would be one of the influence this advertising, sales promotion, and etc. will have on me. Right. And yeah, here I really would like to mention about everybody nowadays. We all are a part of social media. Right? Everybody is using something or the other. And we generally get influenced by people. Do we or we don't? Do we have any kind of social media influencers, and by any chance who must have influenced you, and that must have actually made you buy or not to buy, or maybe change your decisions? Think about it. It must have happened in your life, I'm sure. Right? Yes, we do. We definitely do that. This is what was said by, just a second, Rakshit, right? Sai Rakshit. We do. Occasionally, yes, reviewers, basically. So, these kind of influencers, or I would say these are nobody but the opinion leaders in the market, right? Opinion leaders, or I would say the influencers, maybe we would like to follow them, right? These kind of influencers, they are really technically competent people. Right? They are one whom we can actually relate to, or maybe they are socially accessible, right? Or I would also like to use the word here, they are more cosmopolitan. Cosmopolitan, that means you have good idea about the various cultures and you adopt them, right? So you actually respect each and every culture. You're just trying to be very, very innovative. Right? So these are the influencers. I really would like to take an example of Elon Musk here. See, one tweet he makes, right, moves the whole market. Social media influencer, and absolutely, he is one of the great influencer, right? And see, I was just talking about it because we need to understand that sometimes even our decisions are not based on, the way we look at the things, but the way the things are picturized before us, the way it is presented to us. Even, in fact, even that is capable of changing our own decisions. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay updated. Keep on looking for the market information, latest trends in marketing, and I think it's a beautiful subject. You will enjoy it. Thank you so much, everyone.